Alright, it's your boy H Right, and it's all about Real Talk. Brand new season of Real Talk. And today we have a special guest in the building. But before we introduce our guest, right, I want to say a special shout out to our sponsor, the big sponsor, Antigua Wholesale, the home of Dutch Lady Milk, the home of Grace, the home of 876 Water, and the home of Gatorade. Alright, today we have in the building the beautiful Nelle Walsh, clinical psychologist and an Antiguan empress. How are you doing, Nelle?
I'm good.
Yeah. How have you been coping with this whole the crazy time that we're living in right now?
I don't think crazy describe it. It's more than crazy. It has its challenges, but you have to remain positive as possible so that you can make it through. Some days I ain't gonna lie, some days I get overwhelmed and my anxiety is up, but you push through it, right?
Yeah. Well, what is, for me, I want to know, and I think the viewers would want to know too, what is a clinical psychologist? Can you just elaborate a bit more on that career path?
Sure. So a clinical psychologist is a mental health professional, and we see persons from all ages and not one specific mental health disorder. So we see persons with a wide range of mental health issues and pretty much from any age category. Now it is up to the clinical psychologist which age category they will narrow down into, or any specific field they will narrow into. We don't prescribe medication. That's pretty much the difference between ourselves and a psychiatrist. Yeah. We don't prescribe medication. So don't worry, I cannot write your prescription.
But I'm happy that you said that, because some people would want to reach out and they would want to know if you could prescribe things for them. So I'm happy that you made that disclaimer that you don't do that. Right? Now, right now, just like what we said, COVID is here. And it's not just affecting Antigua, but it's affecting the world. And there's a lot of people right now who are gaining from it. And there's a lot of people who are actually struggling with this COVID situation. People can't take care of their families. People are out of jobs. People are, skeptical about the vaccine situation. So, how do you feel about what we've been seeing lately with people committing suicide and all of that? Do you think that what's happening with COVID is playing a role with that?
Yeah, definitely. Whenever we have any stressors in the environment, it's likely for persons to become overwhelmed and feel really anxious or depressed, or any mental health issue that they're having to come above the surface now, because it's a difficult time to cope. When we have persons losing their job, as you would have mentioned, it's just like somebody dying, right? And so in itself, it's a loss. They're losing something, and we see loss of a job, but we also see loss of financial stability, loss of not being able to take care of your families, loss of not being able to afford the luxury that you usually afford. So there are lots of things that come within that whole realm of losing your job. Because we also can talk about, if we look even deeper, talk about loss of that role in the household. If I was the breadwinner in the household, I'm now becoming that person who has to be dependent on somebody else. And how do I cope with that when I'm the dominant one? So we see it's not just a loss of job, but it's a whole lot more than a loss of job. So we have to figure out, how do we cope? And it's difficult. So, just even by giving you that example and dissecting it in that way, we can see that it is overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And, don't want to go too deep in the situation, but, with the whole vaccine now, there's a lot of people who are unsure about the vaccines. And now it's a case where your jobs is at risk, because now we have this mandate that is going around, where if you're not fully vaccinated, you can't work. Now, do you think, what type of pressure do you think that would put on people at this time?
It is some immense psychological pressure. We can look at it from an anxiety perspective, And we can look at it from just not being able to provide your basic needs perspective. Because we know that person's basic needs have to be met in order for them to feel fulfilled in any other aspect.
Yep.
And if they can't eat, they can't sleep, they can't be clothed, then the very basic isn't provided.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we have the anxiety perspective. If I put this thing in my body, then I'm gonna be anxious because if I hit my finger on the table like this, it must be the vaccine. You know, so we then know a tone between the two. We're torn between our values, and then we put people in what we call a dissonance. Yeah. What do we do? How do we cope with that in itself? So you're tugging person's values against one another. And we have to be very careful when we begin to do that, because then it weighs on the mental health. Mm-hmm. It means that people start overthinking, they start worrying, they start ruminating, whatever word you want to use for it. It means that these thoughts are going to be constantly going around in person's minds. And even though it may not be true in terms of what they're thinking, it seems that way because that's what's in the mind. It means then we need education. We need public education to reduce that fear. Anxiety works in a very simple way. Think about it. If let's say you're scared of a spider. If you see the spider, you're going to automatically run. Yeah. It's just like the vaccine. Yeah. I don't want to take the vaccine, so I'm withdrawing. Yeah. Right? But the more you become exposed to that thing that's making you scared, is the more you're likely to warm up to it. Mm-hmm. Right? So the more exposure you have to a spider, the more likely you are to get closer and closer to it. So the more education persons have, is the more likely they're able to warm up to the idea of taking the vaccine and being okay with taking the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy that you said you touch on the education part, right, of what's happening right now. I personally think that the rollout for the vaccination, it was done wrong, right? The vaccines, they were here. Go and take your vaccine. You know, people want to know what is it that I'm putting in my body, what kind of side effects that it's going to have on my body, and stuff like that. So I feel like the rollout was wrong. And this is the next thing now. You being here, right, as a clinical psychologist, we need you now more than ever. No more than ever. All the other persons who are focusing on mental health, because in the Caribbean, I just feel like we as Caribbean people, we don't take mental health seriously, right? We don't take it seriously, and it's no joke. Now, how do you guys plan on assisting with the educating part of this situation that we have at hand?
Well, currently, being a part of Mental Health Talk Antigua, we've been doing lots of public work. We've been on the radio. We started back our live shows because we were on a break from June, I think. So we've just started back in this month, given that this month is Suicide Prevention Month. So it just takes a lot of advocating. We can't do it by ourselves in Mental Health Talk Antigua. It means that we need lots more mental health professionals on board. The downfall about that, we don't have very many mental health professionals, and that's because, as you said, we never really looked at mental health as something that's really serious. You know, even when we look at it from a scholarship perspective, we don't get many scholarships to go to study mental health. we just have to figure it out on our own. We don't see policies in MBS medical benefits or in the insurance companies that say, okay, this is what we're going to cover for your mental health. If you want to seek therapy, you pretty much have to pull it from your pockets. And what if you can't afford it? You know, then you don't get that help that you deserve. So even on that level, we don't see anything for mental health saying that mental health is a serious thing. And then when we look at our policies, how we treat persons who would have offended the law, who would have had a mental health problem, they're cast as everybody else. And we know that a mental health disorder can significantly impair judgment. So when we look at it from that perspective, how can you then class that person on the same scale of a person who is coherent? You know, so we need a lot of work to be done around mental health right here in Antigua and Barbuda.
Definitely, and I feel like our leaders need help too, because our leaders are leading us, but they need help.
Listen,
right?
even me need help, you know.
I was about to ask you later down, like, how are you coping with everything, with your mental health, with everything that is coming at you? You know, it has to be an overwhelming situation, and you're a human being yourself, and you yourself need to focus on your mental health. But how do you handle that, though?
You know, counselors need counselors too. So we have to get our own counselors.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the reality. When we are in school, they tell us counselors need counselors, and it's no joke. It's a high burnout job, and especially now in COVID, we are at a higher risk of being burnout, because on a daily basis we hear lots of information. I can't begin to tell you the amount of information about people's lives that we hear.
Yep.
And of course, we have to remain confidential. So it means that we need somebody to offload on. So that's pretty much how we get it done.
Yeah.
Through our own individual counselors.
Well, you know, I feel like, again, you know, just looking at how we live in the Caribbean. Like, I don't want to just label Antigua, but just I think that it's a Caribbean thing. We don't show much love and compassion when it comes to one another, right? And now is a time where I feel like now more than ever, we need to be careful as to what we say to people. You know, we don't know what people are going through. You might see somebody and they look like they have all put together and they're smiling, but deep down on the inside, you don't know if that person is hurt or depressed or going through a tough time, right? I don't know if it will ever change. I would love to see it change. Or I don't know if you would agree with the statement that I'm making. I just would love to live to see more love being poured out into one another. Especially now, you know, because there's a lot of people out there, man, and I see it. I'm not a doctor, but people come and they talk to me all the time. And sometimes I get overwhelmed. Because I don't know what to say or how to deal with it. I would quickly say, you know what, everything is going to be okay. Don't give up. You know, just keep fighting. You know, just try to stay positive. But how do you stay positive? How do you keep fighting when it feels like everything is gone? You're losing everything. You know, and that's the reason why I said, you know what, I'm looking to start this show. And I need to talk about mental health as the first episode. Because we need it no more than ever.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy for that. And support is important.
Yeah.
And with anything that we do, anything that we're going through in life, we need support.
Yeah.
Somebody who we can talk to, somebody who we can trust, somebody who can just give us a hug.
Yep.
Because especially now, we really need it. And we need to band together so that we can get through it. You know, we talk about social distance. I don't particularly like the word social distance, because we need people, right? As human beings, no matter if you're introverted or extroverted, we need people at some points in our lives to help us through difficult times. Because we know that the more you become withdrawn is the deeper you sink into depression.
Yes.
Now, as Caribbean people, we have a tough love kind of situation.
Tough love.
It's not that we don't love, you
Tough
know.
love.
It's that we just tough, and we figure that we need to mask it. And we need to, if we show too much affection, then we're weak.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not that we don't have love in our hearts. It's not that we don't care. It's just that it's what we've been taught. It's our culture that if we show too much affection, then, you know, you're too mushy and you're too weak. You know, if you see the person walking down the road holding hands, you're like, listen, they may be too much into it. But and when we see other cultures, we see different, right? So I wouldn't say that we don't show love, is that we show love very differently. But however, that doesn't make it right. You know, because sometimes we just need to hear, I love you, I am there for you. You know, we just need to hear those words, and to show somebody that you support them and you care for them isn't weak. You know, showing that you're vulnerable isn't weak. It shows, as a matter of fact, it shows that you're self-aware. It shows that you are able to grow and you're able to develop. So it's important that you can say how you feel to somebody. If you aren't able to say how you feel to somebody, then something may be terribly wrong. We might have to start looking at some emotionally abusive patterns there. If you aren't able to say, I'm angry, or I'm not feeling well today, Can you help me? Because it means that that person cannot support you. So it's very important that we have support and we can show love.
Yeah. Because they say now, just going back a little bit to the tough love. You know, for example, as a man, right? I would go to a friend and I would say, boy, I'm hurt right now. I feel a bit depressed. And how that friend would probably show me some love. Where mean you're depressed, boy? Yeah, boy, don't stuff up yourself and publish yourself. You understand where I come from? That's how he's showing me love and support. But in that moment, that's not what I want to hear.
Yeah, and we have a way to do that in terms of the Caribbean. Nobody can be depressed. Well, you have to be depressed about. But we have to understand that no two persons are alike. Yeah. And so you and I can be presented with the same challenge, but you cope with it and I don't. Yeah. And that's because we are cultured differently. Yes. We have different parenting. And so what we learn in our parenting is that it's different coping mechanisms. And if I wasn't taught to cope very well, let's say in my household, everything is an argument. If that's the way how I was taught to cope, then that's how I'm going to cope with it, by arguing. And if that person doesn't respond the way I want to, then I'm going to feel even more angry, And so, no, as much as people are alike, people are very different. Yeah. And so we have to look on it that way. And depression is real. We have to know that depression is real. And when a person says, I don't feel well, I feel depressed, I feel really down, it's important that you give them that support rather than say, what do you have to be depressed about? How about you say, what is bothering you at that time? Tell me how to talk to me, because that is what that person needs at that time. The more you talk, the better you feel.
Wow. Well, I hope that, our viewers would take all the knowledge and all the inspiration that they can get from what you said just now and run with it. And start to show more love and just tone down the tough love a little bit. And it's okay to be a bit mushy sometimes.
Of course, definitely.
Well, I just talking about culture. I realized that you studied in Barbados, right? And you also studied in England, right? Two different cultures. How would you compare both?
Listen, I don't even know where to start. Caribbean people are different. Being Antiguan, it's different. Barbados was quite a while ago. I enjoyed it. It was let me see. I don't even know what to say. I met quite a bit of Caribbean people. Yeah. I can tell you that it really did expand my horizon, seeing things differently. There are things that we were accustomed to in Antigua that, wasn't necessarily in the Bayesian culture. Yeah. But I wouldn't trade my experience in Barbados for the world. I often tell them, I hope my mommy isn't watching, I often tell them if I could go back, I don't know if I'd do enough book work.
Barbados is a party capital, There's so much to do down there.
I really did enjoy my time in Barbados. In England, I really did enjoy my time in England too. It was different in terms of culture. There was a lot of cultural differences. Where I studied in England, I studied in Southampton. Okay. And anybody who knows Southampton, it's on the coast of England, on the south coast of England. Very small town. Very white town.
Oh, wow. Oh, very white town. How was that? You need to tell me about that. How was that?
So it was very different. I remember I went to England the day before my courses started because I was still at work. And when I went, I walked into a room, and when I was the only black person in that room. Wow. I was like, this cannot be real. Every time the door opened, I looked back and I was like, is that a black person walking in? And there wasn't. And then a lecture hall filled with, being the only black person, it was really different. And then when I got into my individual class, it was pretty much the same thing. And I remember the first time I saw a black person, I did this.
To make sure.
I was like, whoop, I'm not the only one here. So culturally, in terms of even just being aware, I always say to people, the first time I was aware that I was black was when I went to England to study. Because, even though you've traveled different places, you're around your own people. And not being familiar with anybody, it was really different. I remember sitting in the class and the lecturer said, if you know anything about Caribbean people, they slam dominoes and you'd think they're all angry. And I bust out laughing because I knew it was true.
Yeah.
But my classmates, for them, they were like, oh, that's weird. Because that's not what they're accustomed to, you know?
Yep.
So even in the culture, it was different, but I adapted. Even with climate, England is always gloomy. We're from the Caribbean. We're outside. It's sunny all the time. It's warm all the time.
Yep.
And so adjusting to that climate, it was a trip.
I can only imagine.
It was a trip.
I've never been to England, but I've heard so many stories. I have friends who live in England. They always invite me to come over. It's just a place that, you know, I've never been too interested in going to because of the weather. But
once you can get past the weather, England is a lovely place.
Yeah.
You know, it also expands your horizon in terms of your mindset, how you view people, how you see things. It really is different. Yeah. And I always say to people, traveling makes you an even more knowledgeable person because you're able to explore. And one of the things that I loved about England, it brought out that side of me where I was able to explore, because even though I was studying in Southampton, I wasn't confined to Southampton. Yep. I was afforded the opportunity to travel to Oxford and Manchester and even outside of England, Italy and Switzerland and those places. So, you know, it gave you that opportunity to explore. And what I especially enjoyed, I wasn't limited to Caribbean culture because I'm accustomed to Caribbean culture. Yeah. I know what Caribbean culture is. We're happy, we're bubbly, we're friendly people.
Vibesy people.
Yes, that's who we are. Now coming to a culture with, you know, time is of the essence. I remember the first time I tried to catch the bus, I was like, oh God, I missed the bus in the car because it was on time. You know, adjusting to just very simple things like that. And people who are more quiet and who would necessarily say hello to you first, and where I am meeting people saying hi, you know,
unlike here.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that I'm happy for, though, I'm happy that you were able to experience Barbados, you were able to experience England, and you gain your knowledge, but you didn't stay away. You came back home and you're now playing a role in Antigua and Barbuda in helping people and educating people and being there for your community, right? I feel like it's a very important thing because too often we see Antiguans go away to school and just stay away. I understand that sometimes you get exposed to a different lifestyle and you adapt to that lifestyle, but we need people to come back home because we need help here.
Home is where my heart is. First of all, I'm attached to my family way too much. So I'm not going to stay away for very long. But I believe in giving back. And I believe that if my country can give to me, why can't I give back? When I went to Barbados, I went on a scholarship from the Board of Education. And of course, I was bonded. But for me, it was coming back to give back. How can I contribute? And I grew up with that mindset that you always give back. When I went to England, I also went on a scholarship. Not from Antigua, I went on a Commonwealth scholarship. But in my mind, too, I always wanted to give back. Because if everybody go away and don't come back, then who helps? Who fixes the problem? Right? And so that's what motivates me on a daily basis, is that I'm helping and I'm giving back, because that's what I believe in, right? If for me, in England or in the US and Canada, they have lots of people like me already, right? They can get even more people like me. But in Antigua, we have a handful. Right? And we need more than just a handful to deal with the entire population. So if I could come back and contribute in that way, whatever services I'm able to do, I'm forever coming back. I am loyal. Let me tell you, one thing that UWI teaches you is the Caribbean spirit and to love your own and to love your own country. And that will stay with me forever.
You know, I'm so happy that you said that, right? And you were able to go to school. You were able to enjoy that life. Unfortunately, at this time, there's a lot of kids who, like, they aren't getting the opportunity to enjoy being in school, being with their friends, having a teacher in the classroom. And, you know, yes, we see a lot of people losing jobs, but I don't see a lot of people focusing on the young people who are actually struggling. Like this generation, most of them will not have a proper graduation picture. They will not have the opportunity to go to their ball and create that memory that will last a lifetime. They can't compete in sports. They can't live a normal life. And I personally feel like we're going to have some problems in the near future with this generation and the generation that is coming up after.
And it's really sad because on a daily basis when I speak to children, because I do counsel children as well, I hear, I just wanted to go back to school and now I just feel so angry and I feel rebellious because I'm tired of being home. I'm tired of my parents. This, for some children, it is their getaway, their ability to be who they are, especially for teenagers. Parents aren't at the forefront of teenagers' mind. It's their peers. And once we understand even their developmental stages, we understand how important it is for peer support in that period of time. So for children who are in secondary school, for them right now, it's difficult continuing to cope behind of a laptop. And then there's so much added frustration. Mommy want the chores done now. Mommy don't understand that I have to be in class right now because what she sees is that I'm home, or daddy sees that I'm home, so I have to go do the chores in the yard, but I want to be in school as well. For younger children, it's just even in the socialization pattern. The other day I was saying to my cousin who has a 2-year-old, finally he gets to go to preschool. He doesn't even know what the outside world looks like. And even for them so young, being at home, it does impact on their social skills. Because whereas, preschool, daycare is that time for them to go and they continue to explore, be with other children, touch things in the classrooms and that kind of stuff. They aren't able to do that at 3-4 years old because they're home. And all they now know is that home environment. So it doesn't just impact adults, but it definitely does impact children. And we don't know the long-term impact that it will have on those children if we're able to teach them, mold them again after. But we definitely know that there will be some impact because there is no normal right now, right? And for them, especially those who would have probably been in 4th, 5th form, looking forward to these things, knowing that they won't have these things, it could affect them differently. Because then, when your hopes are up, then you feel like, okay, then that's pointless now because I don't need to work very hard because I don't feel like I'm being rewarded. Nobody's noticing me because, I can't even have a graduation ceremony to have all my friends and family there. And so, it really does impact children. So it means that we have to be talking to our children, keeping them grounded. And so parents have a very important role to play at this particular time.
Very important role. Now is the time to pour love into your kids. Be very supportive. Spend as much time as you can with them because they're struggling right now. Right? At this present moment, Jonelle, do you operate from a space? Like, so for example, we just touched on the kids. Like, if there's a child in school and depressed and need somebody to speak to, where do they find Jonelle? Do you have a space that you operate from?
Well, I am a counselor at the Family and Social Services Division, so I do work for the government.
Okay.
Full time. At the Family and Social Services, we see clients and their families, children and their families, but we are living in some extraordinary times. And so even though our services are catered to children and families, we have also been open to seeing adults. Because we are the only service in the government that provides free counseling for children and families. We have gender affairs division, but that's if you're in a domestic dispute, right? You can get counseling in that aspect. And then there's pretty much nowhere else to really turn to. Recently, as of this week, I saw a flyer with healthcare workers being afforded counseling at Mount St. John's. And that's a start. Because the reality is people can't afford it. People definitely can't afford it. Yes. And therapy, I must admit, it isn't the cheapest. And that's because studying isn't the cheapest either. Just like doctors, we have to invest a lot. And not because we would have gone to university and completed it means that studying stops. It's continuous education. We're always on to the next course. What is it that we have to sign up for? What certifications we have to do to continuously keep the knowledge fresh? Because at the end of the day, people change and people are dynamic. So over a period of time, we have to keep abreast with what's happening in the society. So it's a non-stop learning experience for us. But that's usually how you can find me in the Family and Social Services. I am there every day once I am well or not on vacation. I am there trying to help persons, and our services range. I don't think I would have mentioned what is it that I specialize in, but I do a whole host of things. I work alongside the courts, the magistrates' courts, the high courts, helping persons who would have offended the law, persons who need co-parenting. I would work along with Gender Affairs Division as well, helping persons who have been traumatized from domestic abuse situations, rape victims, other sexual assault victims, people who have generally been traumatized from car accidents to hurricanes to a break into their house, whatever it may be. So it means now that I deal with anxiety, depression, grief, loss, trauma. Those are my specialties, pretty much.
Well, definitely we're going to put your contact information here so people can see how to get in contact with you, right? And for the persons that are actually watching this show, what are some of the tips that you would leave with them? You know, things that they can do to sustain their mental health at this time.
One of the first things I would say is talk. You know, there are people like me out there that you could talk to. I understand it could be expensive, and I could understand that maybe you don't want to do it in the government sector. But as for myself, I do practice privately as well. So one of the things that you could do is look into a psychologist. If you don't feel comfortable talking to a friend, because sometimes you need more than a friend, have that social support, because right now we need each other in these very difficult times. And one of the things that I always say to people is that try to think positive, because the mind is extremely volatile. And what I mean by that is the mind can also change. We have this term that we say the mind is neuroplastic. And what we also pretty much means is that it could change. So whatever we put in is whatever we get out. So if we put in negative thoughts, then we're going to get negative reactions and negative outcomes. So it means that we have to remain positive at all times. You know? So when we think positive, we feel positive. I say to people, if today you get up and you're not feeling well, dress up. Even if you're around your house. Put on your fanciest clothing, put on your best music you could find, and that will definitely uplift your spirit. Especially music. Music is therapy. You know, if we feel down and depressed, don't listen to down and depressed music. You're going to feel worse. We have the beach. One of the things that I say to people, utilize the beach. I know there are lots of restrictions now on the beach.
Right now we don't have the beach right now.
You know, but if we can use it in the very small window, the beach is therapy. If you can go to the beach in your mind, if you're that good, then that's excellent. You know, those are simple things that you could do. If you like gardening, if you like chatting with friends, just do whatever it is that make you happy in the moment, because you need to make yourself happy first before you can try to make anybody else around you happy, because it's important for your own happiness. And that's what I'd say to anybody out there. Do what you like doing. It may be difficult right now to do some of the things. I know some persons may like going to the bar, some persons may like partying, there are no fets. Alcohol is actually not your best medicine. It's what we call unhealthy coping. So maybe it's a good thing bars are closed, that you can actually get in touch with yourself and find hobbies. Listen, people are creative. People have gone into so many different things at this moment that you would never believe. And so you can tap in on your own resource, on your own skills. Even for me, myself, I would have started my own small business outside of mental health, just for me to cope with this pandemic. And when I talk about it's something out of the box, making castor oil, and it's very out of the box, very different from mental health, you know. And so you can find your own niche. There are lots of resources around us, and people have tapped into that. And so if you're listening to this and you haven't yet tapped into your own resources, it's now the time to do that very same thing.
I can definitely agree with you. If I'm feeling down, which I rarely feel down, most of the times I'm happy, I would get a haircut. I just go to the barber shop and I get a haircut and I look in the mirror and I'm like, yo, boy, you're clean now. I'm gone again. Right? I don't, pull down myself. I do the things that I enjoy doing. Like, for example, this show. I love it. I love talking to people. I love learning because I'm learning a lot being here talking to you. A lot of things that I didn't know, I learned myself today. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm happy that you said, people should do what they enjoy doing. If you love the beach, go to the beach whenever you can. All right? Now, you touched on something a while ago that I was going to end with that, but the new journey in terms of the business with the castor oil, right? So now that we're off your profession as the clinical psychologist, now I want to touch on the castor oil.
The castor oil business. Okay.
Tell us about that.
Okay. It actually started before COVID. Well, the interest started before COVID, and you wouldn't believe that all I wanted was some castor oil for my hair. And Beauty Rama had none, Sam's had none, the other hair store on Reckless Street, they didn't have any. And I just wanted castor oil for my hair because I was on this new hair journey that just sprung upon me. I have braids in now, but I was sprung upon being natural because I braided my hair so much. And I didn't want to relax it again. And I was YouTubing and I found that castor oil was really good for your hair. And at the same time, my sister was constructing her home, and one of the guys said, that's the castor plant. I was like, you're kidding. And my sister was like, oh God, this DIY freak, she's going to try it. Yeah. And I tried it.
Nice.
It worked. And I was supplying castor oil now for everybody around me.
Wow.
And then COVID happened and I had absolutely nothing to do. And I was bored. It was getting... COVID was getting overwhelming, and I'm like, you know what? I am going to mass produce castor oil because I have the resources. I know what to do. And that's how it started. So myself, my sister, my older sister that is, and my cousin, we now have our castor oil business called Coily.
Nice.
You may see it around. I don't know if anybody have seen it, but we have been working on it. Producing more. We have been to the All Saints West Fair. We have been promoting on Facebook. So if you go to our Facebook, Instagram pages, it's called Coily Glam. Our bottles are only $15. So we try to make it affordable. They're 2-ounce bottles. And pretty much that's how we started Coily. That's how Coily is here today. We've put a different spin to our castor oil as well. So we've scented them. And we've given them local names. So we have the bush tea, which smells like lemongrass, but it has a little peppermint and eucalyptus in it. And we have the Good Morning with Adley.
Good morning with Adley.
Yes. Which is a citrus scent because it's fresh, it's new. So it's orange, tangerine, and some lemon. So it's really citrusy in that sense. And for the persons who are not so much into the scent, we have the original castor oil unscented. And castor oil is just an amazing product. As I continue to do it, I learn so much more about it. It's not just good for the hair. We promote it for the hair, but it's good for the skin as well. We have persons who have used it for so many different reasons. Even for the joint pains, we have older people that use it for the joint pains. For men, we have men using it in their beards. So we do have those persons as well. Yes.
So at this present moment, we can find the products. Do you deliver, or you can find them in stores?
We deliver. We haven't launched stores as yet, which is what we're hoping by year end. Hopefully before sooner than year end.
Nice.
We're hoping that we can put them on the shelves, but we do deliver at this point in time. We're actually closed for holidays.
Nice.
So we're supposed to open on the 1st of October, which is just around the corner. So if you want to order, you can always place your order, and we'll get it. Don't worry, we're lovely ladies. We have a team working with us.
Yeah, so people, you heard it. Go on out, support Coily.
Yes.
All right, go on out and support Coily. It's 100% local. Janelle, thank you so much for taking the time out to being in my presence today.
No problem.
Sharing the message.
It was a pleasure.
And I enjoyed every single moment of it. I wish you all the best on your journey. I know it's going to be a crazy journey. Congratulations on starting your business. I will definitely be supporting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for passing through again. Remember, people, to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk.